Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started. Today's topic is ClubExpress roles, ClubExpress for club and association treasurers. So hopefully you're a treasurer of your organization or one or more organizations. If not, we still love to have you. So stick around and you'll learn what some of the other features that other board members or club officers within your organization are using. So before we get started, we'll go through just a bit of housekeeping. We do have a lot of ground to cover today, so we'll dive right in. All of your microphones are muted, and we ask that you do keep them that way. That doesn't mean that you have to be silent the entire time. You can ask any questions that you might have about today's topic in the chat window. Devin, one of my favorite ClubExpress team members, is hanging out in the chat, and he's going to be there to answer all of those questions. We will have time for some Q&A before we wrap up today, but you can ask anything that you might have come up in that chat. A recording of this webinar and all of our other webinars are available on our YouTube channel. And we're going to be directing you to our YouTube channel today for a lot of the content that we're talking about. So familiarize yourself. If you haven't visited that, you can search for us by going to YouTube, typing in clubexpress.com with the .com spelled out, or you can navigate to any one of our videos or tutorials and hit that subscribe button while you're watching them. It's not just so we get more subscribers. Of course, you get notified whenever we post a new video or tutorial, especially if you aren't able to stay for the entire webinar. And one more ask, and we do ask this in pretty much every webinar. If you are using ClubExpress and if you have thoughts, we would love to hear them. You can visit clubexpress.com/reviews and leave us a review on any of the sites that you see listed. Your review helps us learn what we're doing right, what we can change, and it helps other potential customers determine if ClubExpress is going to be a good fit for them. So again, if you have thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Hello all, this is Devin from the future jumping in with a bit of a correction. At one point during the live webinar, I said that club officers would not need to provide a social security number if the club gave us a federal tax ID. This was incorrect. In accordance with the U.S. Patriot Act, we do require a club officer social security number in order to make use of the ClubExpress merchant account processor. On the screen right now, you can see the standard communication about what information and documentation is required to be approved for a ClubExpress merchant account. A link to this information will be in the description of this video as well. We apologize for the error and any confusion. Now back to our regularly scheduled webinar.
And without further ado, we will go and dive right into our topic today. So one of the things that I want to call out right from the start is the purpose of this webinar. So the purpose is to give you a high-level overview of the features that you might touch or likely will touch as a treasurer, what they're for, what they are, where they are, and why they're important to you. So we have a playlist on our YouTube channel called ClubExpress for Treasurers, and we'll drop a link to that in the chat. And it has full-length webinars and tutorials for everything that we are going to talk about today. It's about 9 hours of content, so surely we aren't going to be able to cover everything in detail in this webinar. But again, the purpose of this is to tell you, this is something that you might see, this is something you might come across, and if you want more details on it, we highly encourage you to visit the channel or click the link that we'll send out in the chat and save it for yourself. So again, we're going to go through these things from sort of a high-level overview. So if you hear something that sounds interesting to you or you want to learn more about it, we highly encourage you, again, to visit our playlist and watch the full-length tutorial or webinar. Our tutorials are usually anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on the complexity of the feature. And our webinars, of course, are anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. So keeping that in mind, there is a lot of content to get through. So the first thing that we are going to talk about today is using the ClubExpress merchant account. We're going to talk about how you can sign up for our merchant account and the pros and cons of using our merchant account, as well as what existing customers need to do to migrate to our new merchant account. So if you're an existing ClubExpress customer using our merchant account, you likely have gotten a few emails from us. So we're going to go through that with you. Now, treasurers are also responsible for remitting, for Taking a look at remitted funds, collecting fees. We're going to talk about how we collect fees from you, how you manage your transactions, payments, and how you can manage bulk payments as well. So applying payments to multiple members at one time. Those are things that not just an administrator can do, but coordinators have the ability to manage some of these things as well. We'll talk about credits and refunds. You can process credits on your website and even refunds. It's something that we've recently covered in a webinar. So, of course, in the interest of time, we're not going to go through all of that in detail here, but we are going to talk about, again, where you'll find that information and how you can go about, going through the refund and the credit process for your members. We'll also cover financial accounts and reports. Now, financial accounts are a really fantastic workhorse for treasurers, and they offer a lot of different benefits depending on whether or not you are using our merchant account. So we'll talk about those. And we'll also go through some of the modules that you should keep an eye on as a treasurer. So any module that's going to carry a fee with any of the items in that module, we'll point those out to you and tell you what you need to kind of pay attention to and maybe coordinate with other folks in your organization for. We'll highlight all of the ways that you can communicate with website visitors, members, and non-members as it relates to your job. So how you can reach out to folks to let them know that they still owe money to your organization, how you can set up reminders for your organization as well. And then we'll also talk about the support that we offer for organizations with subgroups. So to start off, I want to talk about the ClubExpress merchant account. So as an organization, club or association, when you sign up with ClubExpress, you have the option to use our built-in merchant account or to use the merchant account that you might have already been using with your organization. Some organizations might use Stripe already. They might use PayPal. There are a lot of options for you. Now, there are some pros and cons to using our merchant account versus your own merchant account. There isn't an extra fee to use either of them. So we don't charge you to use ours, and we don't charge you if you want to continue using your own. But there are some things to keep in mind. So under the list of requirements, you'll see the list of requirements that we have in order for you to use the ClubExpress merchant account. So you must be a nonprofit organization in the United States, have a federal tax ID, and not any of the following. So you can't be a membership-based business or for-profit. You can't be an organization that processes tabs. So if you have a clubhouse where you might offer food and beverages, you might have a bar at your clubhouse. If you're processing tabs for your members, you won't be able to use our merchant account. Or if you're regularly processing very large transactions. So you do have the ability to let us know that you maybe have a very large donation coming into your organization and you want us to make a couple of adjustments. We've talked about that in some of our past webinars as well. And so you can find information about that within our treasury playlist. But if you are considering using our merchant account and you regularly process very large donations, great for you and your organization. We're very happy for you, but unfortunately, you probably can't use our merchant account. And of course, if using our merchant account is not prohibited by state law with your organization specifically, so a lot of public universities are prohibited from sharing their bank account information. They're prohibited from participating in using our merchant account. And of course, that's something that you would know about within your organization already. Now, with the pros and cons, we talked about there isn't an extra fee. So some of the pros that you would be able to access using the ClubExpress merchant account, you can use financial accounts to distribute funds to specific bank accounts that you've set up. And we're going to talk about financial accounts, and we certainly have a lot of additional content to go through how to set up financial accounts. But really what it's allowing you to do is say, out of, all of the things that I'm collecting money for on my site, events, donations, membership dues, storefront purchases, where do I want that money to go? Maybe I have a completely different account separate from my primary bank account where I want all of my donation funds collected to go. So you can tell the system, instead of you having to take all of the money that ClubExpress collects and remits to you, and saying, I now need to figure out how much of that came from my donation fund, withdraw that and move it to a different account, we can take care of that for you right off the bat. So it eliminates a handful of steps for you. And of course, secure payment processing. We are a secure payment processor. You can even have your members store a credit card within their member profile. We don't have access to that information. We don't store that information. It's fully encrypted. So you don't have to worry about anything, getting into the wrong hands or getting breached. Now, a con would be that you may need prior authorization for very large transactions like a one-time donation. Of course, if you're using your own merchant account, you don't have those limits in place. And the reason that we do have that limit in place is solely because we are carrying a lot of the risk. We want to eliminate, anything that we might need to, spend a lot of time trying to correct or trying to work with you to correct. So we try to eliminate those things from the get-go by limiting the dollar amount of some of those transactions. Now, the way that you can apply for the merchant account, and I will switch gears here, you won't necessarily see exactly what you're going to see if you have not yet applied for the merchant account. Now, if I'm visiting my control panel as an administrator, I'm going to pop into my money options screen within the money tab, and we're going to be spending a lot of time in this particular section. So this is just our first stop of the day. In money options, if we scroll down, we can see a spot for our credit card merchant account. Now, on our demo club, our credit card merchant account isn't something that we can edit, but it is up and running. So we see that we don't have a merchant account, but we have the ability to pretend to process payments. Now, what you'll see is a button letting you know that you can apply for the merchant account right from that screen. The process is a relatively short process. Our team reviews the information, and you'll also be asked to maybe verify some information for us, and you can start processing payments right on your website. Now, this allows you to process credit card payments on your site. Without the merchant account, you have the ability to process checks and cash payments. You can also integrate PayPal onto your website. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But focusing on our merchant account, once you apply and we ask for that basic information, let's talk about how you get paid using our merchant account. So 3 times per month on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of each month, we will run an ACH transfer, so that'll transfer the money into your primary bank account or into your primary bank account, as well as any additional bank accounts that you may have told us you want funds to go to. I mentioned earlier using a financial account to say, I want all of my donations to go into a specific bank account. All of that would happen at the same time. Now, because of banking time and transfer time, the cutoff for funds included in those transfers is 3 days prior. Example, in January, from the 1st to the 7th, all of those funds would be submitted to you on the 10th. And for the 20th, anything from the previous period up until about the 17th, that's going to get submitted to you as well. So keeping in mind that lag time, that cutoff, and the fact that you'll be receiving funds from ClubExpress on 3 separate points throughout the month. And we'll go through where you can access that information. We, of course, have reports showing you exactly how much money was sent to you and where it came from. And you'll be receiving the net amount of each charge. So that would be your charge minus your credit card processing fee and any non-member convenience fee. And if you're wondering what the non-member convenience fee is a small fee that is charged to, is added to additional charges for non-members, simply because a non-member is someone who is accessing your site that you're also not paying for. So we do add an additional fee to process that transaction simply because that person's using your site. They don't have an account on your site. They're not a member. And so their presence on your site is not being paid for. Now, in the last couple of weeks or the last few weeks, treasurers have likely seen a couple of emails from ClubExpress letting them know that we are switching merchant accounts and that there are just a couple of things that we need you to take care of in order to make that switch. So I want to highlight those and make sure that we get you going on the right foot, make sure that we set you up to make those changes and that you can get those changes completed before the deadline. So treasurers or presidents who may be listed in using our merchant account, you received an email from us directing you to visit your money options screen to verify your information with Stripe. Now, nothing is really changing for you. We just need you to maybe provide some additional information. Might be missing a zip code. You may have changed treasurers and you need to provide some additional contact information for who should be managing all of that for your organization. Now, all of those changes shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes. It'll take a minute or two to verify on the Stripe side, and then you'll be good to go. So what's changed? You may have caught on the last slide that the way that we're processing credit card fees is slightly different. So previously, if you were using our merchant account, you know that we would remit the entire amount to you and then withdraw credit card transaction fees from your account. Now, going forward, we'll remit just the net amount. So that is the transaction minus the payment, minus the credit card transaction fee. So keeping that in mind, all of the reports will reflect the change. And then your bank account deposits may be labeled slightly differently than what you're used to. They may be labeled ClubExpress Payouts or Stripe Payments Company. Now, something to note is that in the email that we sent you, we mentioned that your bank might require you to authorize Stripe to deposit funds into your account. If that's the case, there are a couple of codes that we provided in the email that we sent to you. So if you are having trouble finding those, you can contact our support team and let them know that you need another copy of the email that was sent out to treasurers regarding the merchant account switch, and they'll be happy to provide that for you. Now, again, you may not need to do that with your bank, but in case you do, just remember that that information is in the original email that was sent to you. Now, it's really important that you get these changes up and running on your site. Your old merchant account is closing on March 15th. This is a required change for you. Nothing is changing per se on your site. We've just switched merchant accounts on the back end. It's going to provide better processing for you. Of course, it's always safe, just as safe as it was before. So we ask that you hightail it over to Money Options, make that change for yourself. If you have questions, reference the emails. If you can't find those emails that we have sent out, again, give our support team a call and let them know that you are missing a copy of that email and you would just like to make sure that you get all that squared away. So now that we've covered the major big to-do of the day, let's go over what we're going to demonstrate and we'll start kicking into our demo club. So the first things that we probably want to talk about would be searching through transactions. Now, the biggest thing that you're going to be focusing on as a treasurer would be collecting funds and processing them. And I'm logged in to our demo site as Martin Smith. Martin Smith is an administrator, so he has access to everything across the back end of the site. Now, you as a treasurer might visit the control panel and maybe you won't necessarily see every single tab. You might only have access to the money tab and all of its functions. So we're going to visit a couple of other places just to take a look at some other options that you might have access to. But most of what we're going to be talking about is going to take place just in the money tab. Now, there are two spots as a treasurer, as someone looking to apply a payment to your site that you might go to find that open payment or find that open transaction. The first would be in the money tab under your transaction search feature. And the second, if you have access to it, would be in the people tab in your people manager. So I'll pop into the People Manager very quickly. Again, this isn't the only space that you have where you can access payment information or apply a payment to a member or non-member account. So what I've done so far is I've already searched for or created a search for one of the easiest ways to find who has an outstanding payment. Now, when you're visiting the People Manager, you have a really great search panel at the very top. As a treasurer, I'm really just looking to find a couple of things. I'm looking through by either member last name, maybe I'm searching by an email address or even a member number. Whatever information I have to identify them, I can input that in my search criteria. And then I can also scroll down and select with a pending payment. Now, I've already selected that here and selected yes. Now, when I click search, of course, I'm getting everyone who has a pending payment. So everyone who has this really indicative green $sign. So that's the quickest way for me to find anyone in my database. I have active and expired members here. I can search through other statuses as well if I have a dropped member who has submitted a payment. Now, clicking this $sign takes me to the payment page. Now, the payment page can be accessed either as a member when they're purchasing something, or as an administrator or coordinator when you've clicked that $sign to apply a payment for that member or that non-member. Now, the difference when you are looking at this from a member's perspective versus an administrator perspective is going to be your payment methods that are available. So as a member, I would have the option to submit a payment using cash, check. If you have PayPal added as an option, I can connect my PayPal account and make a payment that way. If you have enabled credit card payments on your site, I, as a member, can also select credit card, input my credit card information, and make a payment right away. I also have the ability, as I mentioned, to save a credit card to my profile for faster checkout the next time. Now, as an administrator, if someone wants to send in cash or check, they can't mark that as paid on their end. You would have to mark that as paid as an administrator or coordinator. So you would find their outstanding payment and navigate to the payment method and choose the appropriate method. In addition to cash and check payments, you also have some additional options. You can write off the amount, you can comp the amount. If you're receiving a check or a payment from another chapter, you also have the option to note that it's received from another chapter. If you aren't a chaptered organization, you won't see that option and you won't need to worry about it. Now, in the last webinar that we hosted, we talked about discount coupons and discount codes. So right at the top of my payment screen here, towards the center, I have the option to insert a code, either on behalf of another member, or if I'm going through this process as a member, I can insert my own code right on the payment page. Again, this is a webinar that we hosted last week, so we highly encourage you to visit our ClubExpress for Treasurers playlist and learn more about applying discounts to transactions. Now, I can select a payment method here. I can say that we've received cash and input my check number. I can add some additional payment notes. And these are fields that populate once I've selected receive check from my payment method. I'll go ahead and record my check payment. And now I can see that Jimmy is removed from the list of my search results with everyone who has a pending payment. Now, in addition to that, if we go back into our control panel and visit the Money tab, an additional spot where you can apply payments would be in the Transaction Search feature. So I'll pop into our Transaction Search feature. We have our familiar search panel at the top, which defaults to showing you transactions which are unpaid for everyone. So I'll go ahead and select Search. I can limit my search criteria to a subgroup by date range. I can also change this to view only paid transactions if I'm looking for a receipt or a payment method that someone would have used. Now, on this screen, I can see a bunch more $signs. I'm seeing something that I'm used to seeing. All of these $signs are going to lead you to the exact same screen, which is our payment page. So from here, I can choose any number of payments. I am also seeing some additional statuses here. So I have an unpaid status, which is what I would expect to see. I also have a hold status. The hold status is something that you might see when a member has signed up for your organization, but they're awaiting approval or their charges pending. So when you have an approval process put in place for members joining your organization, the transaction is on hold until you approve their membership application. So if you have an approval process set up, you might end up seeing a handful of hold transactions within your transaction search feature. You'll see a receipt, but you won't see the option to mark it as paid. So another option that we have here is to show scheduled partial payments. So if I show scheduled partial payments, and we'll talk about partial payments in just a second, I can see the same $sign, and it takes me to the exact same payment screen where I might see something slightly different than just a standard amount that is owed. Now, payment schedules are something that's available within the event calendar. And if you are a ski club or if you're an organization that hosts a lot of events that are expensive, you may have used the payment schedule already. When you're setting up your payment schedule, you determine what the initial deposit, so to speak, is. So if you have a $2,000 event, perhaps your initial deposit is $100. And then you determine what percentage is due each time a payment is made. So in this particular case, we separated the event out into 5 or 6 payments, and each payment was about 20% of the total. So when you're applying a payment to a payment schedule, you'll see that I have one item checked off already, which is my initial deposit. And I have one more empty checkbox that I can check off, either as a member going to apply this payment on my own, or as an administrator where perhaps I've received a check from Jenny Cho. Now, when I select the next payment, let's say that Jenny has submitted a check, not just for the $100 initial payment, but she also submitted an early payment for the amount due on March 10th. Now my total is updated at the bottom of the screen. And I also see that my next payment now has an empty checkbox. So if I have all of the payments in a row, I just check off each one individually. And as I check them off, I'm limited to just the next payment. And I can go ahead and say that I've received a check for this payment as well. And I don't have to check off everything on my payment screen. Let's say that Jenny's not ready to pay for the additional registration that she has here. She's not ready to pay for this just yet. She only sent in a check for $240. I'll go ahead and record this check payment. Now I can still see Jenny in the list of my open transactions here because she still qualifies for that scheduled partial payment. And I can see that there's still $560 due for that particular charge. So when we're taking a look at all of our payment methods, we'll go back and search for everything that's unpaid. And again, here is another screen where we're picking and choosing some individual charges. Now I'll go ahead and check off a couple of these. And you'll also notice that next to all of my dollar amounts that I have an edit sign. So I have the ability to change the amount that I'm applying a payment to as well. So in the case of my event registration, I'll go ahead and reset that. In the case of my event registration for Larry Cho, perhaps we only received a $400 check from Larry. So I'll go ahead and enter that in. And then we can just apply the amount. We can see that our total at the very bottom has applied, and I'll go ahead and select received cash and record my cash payment. So all I've applied here is a miscellaneous charge. I've edited the event registration. We've only received a check for about half of the amount, and I'll go ahead and apply that payment. So there are a lot of different ways that you can manage all of the transactions on your site. We do have a tutorial and a webinar to go through all of the different ways that you can apply payments, including bulk payments, which is a way that you would apply one check payment or one cash payment to multiple transactions at a time. For example, if you have a local business who has sent several of its employees to you for a membership or for an event. Now, these are charges where you may have created these charges by registering another member for an event. The member themselves may have created that charge by sending in a donation to your organization or submitting a donation. But there are ways that you, again, might be adding these charges to your members' accounts on your own. And for that, I'm going to visit multiple miscellaneous charges and credits, Now, this is one space where you can add charges or credits to an individual's account. They'll be able to pay for that charge the normal way. It'll still appear as an outstanding charge within their member account. Go ahead and wait for this to catch up with me. But you can also create these charges in our People Manager. So like transaction search and like applying payments, this is something that's available to you within the People Manager as well. The difference is that in the People Manager, you're applying these types of charges or credits to a single person, as opposed to applying them in mass to many people using this screen. And again, we have a lot of this information in detail in our tutorials and webinars in ClubExpress for Treasurers. So we highly encourage you to watch that content. What you're doing here is saying, let's say that I have several people who showed up for an event and perhaps they didn't pay, or maybe I just allowed them to come and visit and I'm charging them a separate fee for that event. Perhaps they volunteered quite a bit and you want to send them a credit, or maybe you do a birthday credit every month and you might want to see, okay, we know that Jimmy has a birthday coming up in March, as does Beatrice and Betty. And so I'll say that everyone gets a $10 credit for the month of their birthday. And we will call this, we'll just call this a discount. And we can send that to our members and they would be able to apply that to anything on your site. So they can use that $10 account credit for something from your storefront. They can apply it to their renewal. They can apply it to an event that they've signed up for. And it gets sent to each of these people individually. And the amount is $10 per person. So we'll go ahead and save this. And we'll choose our financial account. And we'll be talking about financial accounts in just a moment. We'll go ahead and save this. And now I've created an individual credit for 3 separate members. I could have also created an individual charge for several members. Now, I've created a credit, and that's going to take us to our next space, which would be our open credit screen. Our open credit screen is where we can see any credits or any any partial credits with our members. Now I'm seeing here that I have 1 credit for Katerina Rizzo, and I have the 3 credits that I have just recently added. Now, if you are currently using a ClubExpress refund account, and we have, again, we have a webinar and tutorial talking about open credits and refunds through ClubExpress. If you're currently using our refund account, keep in mind the cutoff date for your previous merchant account. If you are using those refunds, and if you intend on using those funds to provide refunds to your members, you're going to want to make sure that you get that done well prior to March 15th. So we would recommend a good cutoff date of about March 10th for processing any refunds that you might want. Now, of course, any funds that you have left in your refund account will get sent back to you. We want to make sure that if you want to process any funds using your prior merchant account, that you do so hastily. So again, if you're offering credits, if you want your members to use those credits, you can keep them on their member account. You can also send them a refund either through the ClubExpress refund account or through any way that you may have set up within your organization, whether that means sending them a check, or maybe that means giving them free registration or something for free from your organization. When you have managed their credit, I can edit the credit so I can change the amount. I can also say that I've refunded the credit. I can waive the credit if the member indicated they don't want to use it, or I can cancel the credit entirely. Now, again, we're going to not spend too much time on this particular screen. Let's pop back into the control panel. And now that we've talked about charges and credits in the Money tab, I want to take a very, very brief trip to the People Manager and show you where those items sit in the People Manager as well. Now, I still have that original search up with our pending payment, and I can keep it that way. The icon that I'm looking for would look like 2 credit cards. So those 2 credit cards would be our charge credit option. And the screen is really similar to the screen that we were just looking at, where we are adding in an individual charge or a credit to the member. And then again, sits on their account. The charge would behave in the usual way. So the member can sign in, make that payment. If we scroll up, we can see that we have that little payment due flag that happens whether it's a charge the member created for themselves or whether you added that charge to their account. Now, financial accounts have come up in a couple of different things that we've talked about. So before we talk about any additional features, let's talk about bank accounts and financial accounts. So we visited our money options page, and we're going to come back to that briefly. But first, let's visit our bank accounts page. This is just to show you, this is where your bank accounts sit. Should you ever need to add a new bank account, make changes to an existing bank account, or if you want to start adding in additional bank accounts that your organization uses, because maybe you didn't know that we could route funds to a different account if you're using our merchant account. Well, this is where you would go ahead and do that. We have one primary account that's added to this demo site. If I want to go ahead and add a bank account, I'm just filling in the basic information that you would for adding in any bank account to any site, really. We'll wait for this to pop up. We have our descriptive name, a name on our account. If you are using QuickBooks, you'll likely be asked for account names, and you'll be asked for account and item names in a lot of spaces on your site. So keeping that in mind, and we'll talk about the modules that you want to keep in mind as a treasurer as well. Under my bank information, I can make this my primary account. You can only have one primary bank account as an organization. Your primary bank account is where everything primarily happens. So it's where we would deposit all of the funds that we collect across your site. And it's also where we withdraw our hosting fee from your site. And if you happen to have been charged for any custom programming, any additional modules that you've purchased, all of that would come out at the same time. Your routing number, your account number, and something to prove that you didn't transpose any numbers on accident and that we definitely get your money to the right place. Now, once you've added in your bank account, one or more bank accounts, you can pop on over to financial accounts and start setting some things up to make your life a little bit easier. Now, on our financial accounts, we have a handful of financial accounts that have been set up already. If I select add an account, I'm naming the account. I can enter in an account number, which is optional, and my account type. Now, even though I am setting up additional financial accounts separate from the ones that exist, you can see all of the financial accounts that exist here. Even if I am choosing a different financial account, I still have to classify it as something close to what we have already. So, for example, if I take a look at my family memberships under master membership dues, I have a financial account called family memberships, and it's going into my primary account, and I've labeled it master membership dues. When you set up your membership types, you likely saw that you had to designate a financial account. That financial account does two things. One, it could route funds from all of those membership dues to one specific account. So when I set up my family membership type and I'm inputting my financial account, I can choose my family memberships account. And let's say that I had more than one bank account listed here, and I wanted all of the funds from my family memberships to go into a separate account. I can choose that account. But what if my organization's not that big, I don't really have more than one bank account, nor do I have a need for more than one bank account? Well, financial accounts can be used for more than just routing money around to different accounts. Financial accounts can also be used for reporting purposes. Now, in our financial accounts tutorial and webinar, we go through all of the different ways that you can use financial accounts to better categorize your reports, to be able to call out specific data in your reports. So we're talking about being able to see a breakdown of your membership dues and how much came from each different member type, how much is associated with each account. It really helps you break a lot more down. So we highly encourage you to, at the very least, explore financial accounts, especially if you as a treasurer are constantly running reports and constantly trying to make changes to the data. So we highly encourage you to see what setting up financial accounts can do for you, your organization, and for reporting purposes. Something to keep in mind is that when you set up the financial account and apply it to the item, for example, family memberships, if I go back into my control panel, into the People tab and select a member type to apply that financial account to. And we'll take a look at where we would see that drop-down option. I'll look for my family membership and I'll go ahead and select my edit option because remember, I can still make changes. And under financial account, instead of selecting master membership dues, I'm going to select family memberships. And I'll go ahead and I'll save those changes. Now, going forward, anyone who signs up for a family membership, all of that is going to get classified under the family membership financial account, which means that I can run a report for just that financial account to see how much money we received from that over any time period that I select. However, it won't go back in time. So anything that had been purchased with that membership before, those membership dues are not going to be included in those reports because it wasn't classified with that financial account at the time of purchase. So things to keep in mind, these are changes that will set you up for success going forward, but some of them may not be retroactive. So there might still be a little bit of a growing pain as you're going through, setting yourself up for success and making sure that you have all of your ducks in a row, set yourself up for some great reports throughout the year. And we'll go back into our control panel and visit our money tab again. Now, we've talked about our bank accounts and financial accounts. I want to pop into ClubExpress rates and your sales tax rates and talk about a couple of different things at the same time. When I visit ClubExpress rates, I'm seeing a breakdown of all of the rates that I'm paying as an organization. So I'm seeing how much I'm paying per member and secondary member. I'm also seeing how much I'm paying per non-member. So if you happen to have a lot of non-members in your organization, more than our recommended amount, you can check to see exactly how much you're paying for those. And we also have some additional processing fees at the very bottom. And you can take a look at those to determine exactly what you're paying for those services. Now, with our ClubExpress rates, you can pop over into bank account activity and view all of the bank account transactions that we have conducted between our accounts and yours. So anytime we are remitting funds to you, anytime we are collecting fees from you. Now, I am on a demo site, so I don't believe I'll have any transactions. However, I'll go ahead and change gears here and we'll pop into our control panel on a different site and we'll select our bank account activity option. If I select search, if I select search and change my time period, so if you are selecting search and not seeing anything, it's only pulling the last 7 days. So keep in mind our default search features. I make that mistake all the time, and hopefully that prevents you from making it too. So if we're taking a look at our bank account activity, this is our demo site. So your bank account activity likely looks a little more robust. You can see the date and the transaction type. So what we've done, did we collect fees or did we remit collected funds to you? And what bank account did that go to? Did that go to your primary account or another bank account that you've selected? How much? And then we also have the ability to pull up some individual details. So we have 3 separate, very short reports that include details and summary details for each of those items. So keep in mind that in addition to the hundreds of reports that we have built in, you have access to bank account activity reports and some additional items there as well. Now, we'll also talk about some of the things that you'll see in money options. And this is going to speak to some of the communication features that we have put in place for treasurers as well. So ways that you can make sure that you get paid. I'll navigate to money options. At the very top, you have your general information. So it's likely that that's not going to change for you once you've set that up with your organization. But your payment options might change over time. So at the very top, who do you want your checks to go to? Do you want to offer a discount? All of this information is something that we do review in our ClubExpress for Treasurers playlist. So each of these are things that you want to take a look at, want to double check that these are giving you the results that you want. For example, all of the emails related to your payments. Do you want to get notified every time someone makes a payment on your site? That could be a lot of emails, or it could be really helpful for you. You can turn that on and off in Money Options. You also have the ability to send out reminders for unpaid transactions. So if you have a lot of members, non-members who are opening or starting transactions on your site, not completing payments, you have the ability to send them payment reminders. So if we are sending members and non-members reminders for unpaid transactions, you choose when they start and how often they're going out. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is, when do the reminders stop? The answer is when you get paid. So, or should I say, when the transaction is satisfied. So that means that they will continue to be sent until the member sends in a check and you apply it, or until they log in and make a credit card payment, or until you decide that you're going to write off the charge or even comp the charge. If we scroll down just a bit, we see the familiar space where we were taking a look at our merchant account details. We also can see where we would apply or where we would configure our PayPal account. So if we are adding in that PayPal connection, this is so your members and non-members can use PayPal in the checkout process. So if you want to allow them to use PayPal to pay for things on your site, go ahead and add that information in. It must be a company PayPal account. It cannot be a personal PayPal account. And scrolling just past this, and this will take us to another one of our features for today, which would be modules that you want to keep in mind as a treasurer. So the first would be QuickBooks. QuickBooks is an extra cost feature. It is something that's available as either a QuickBooks Online integration or a QuickBooks Desktop integration. In either case, the fee is the same and the setup is primarily the same on your website. If you're using the desktop version, it creates a file that you then import into your QuickBooks desktop application, a file exported of all of the transactions during a specific time period that you specify. If you're using QuickBooks Online, it's a one-button click and it sends the information from your ClubExpress website to QuickBooks. There are a lot of additional things that are covered in that, so we encourage you to, again, pop into our ClubExpress for Treasurers playlist and visit our help system and learn more about the QuickBooks integration. If you aren't using QuickBooks, some organizations have asked, is it worth getting QuickBooks if I'm not already using it, simply for the integration? And most people would opt not to. But if you are using QuickBooks, taking a look at that and seeing if that's something for you. Additional modules that you would want to pay attention to, especially if you aren't the person who is setting these up, would be donations and storefront. They would also be your event calendar. Anything where funds are being collected across your site, you want to just make sure that you have a quick pulse on what's happening there, especially if you are managing a lot of the back-end organization, you've set up financial accounts, and you have a totally different person setting up events on your calendar. If you're using financial accounts and you want to make sure that those get applied when someone sets up a donation fund, when someone creates a new event, or when someone adds a new member type, you want to make sure that you've communicated that to them to make sure that all of your reporting and your job gets done well. Now, in addition to some of the communication features that we saw in Money Options, we also have in our Communications tab several system emails related to payments. Now, you've seen us go through these system emails in a lot of our previous webinars, so we like to do a quick Control F, and we can search for any of the transaction-related emails that we have. And if we pop right back into our control panel, in our emailing module, within our emailing module, we have dozens of different distribution lists. Many of them are probably not going to apply to you as a treasurer, but if we pop into our distribution list, and I won't even bother creating an email, again, we have plenty of tutorials. We even have a tutorial on creating an email within our ClubExpress for Treasurers playlist, so you won't have to go far. I'll go ahead and select a new list. And there are a lot of lists like members with an outstanding payment. You can email everyone who has registered for an event. Remember that when you are emailing someone from within an event, you can also email everyone who's registered but who hasn't paid. So there are a lot of different ways that you can communicate with your members and non-members to make sure that your books are in order, to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. And with that, I know that we are close to time. You're probably thinking that this was a lot of content to get through, and it really is, which is one of the reasons why we really encourage you to visit our YouTube channel, to go through all of the videos that we have available to you, and to make sure that you've taken the time to really dive into those features that we've talked about today. So we've kind of given you an overview of what you can do and where you can find certain things. And we, again, are inviting you to dig in a little bit deeper. Devin, how are we doing today?
We have had a very spicy chat, just a lot of really interesting questions. I think probably one of the most important things to clarify is the difference between a nonprofit organization and a for-profit membership-based business. I will go ahead and just right off the top and say, for about 99%, if not even more than that, of our organizations, they are not a for-profit membership-based business. Almost all of our organizations fall under the category of a nonprofit club. The primary distinguishing factor there is if you are like an LLC, like a privately or publicly traded business. If you are an organization business and the purpose of your membership dues is to support the operating costs of your club, that would kind of land you in the nonprofit organization. If you are, running a club and you're selling merchandise, to essentially pocket that money, that would put you more in the for-profit business. But very few of our clubs kind of land in that purview. Most of our questions we had some sort of answer for. There were a few questions about if we would go into detail on QuickBooks. I don't think we have time. QuickBooks would take probably a full hour, if not more, if we were going to go into detail on that. I can go ahead and answer a few of the recent questions, though. There are a few people asking if expired members or non-members count toward the ClubExpress monthly fee. No, expired members and non-members do not count towards the monthly fee, with one caveat being, if you look on our pricing page on clubexpress.com, we do detail that non-members are billed if they exceed 5 times the number of your active members. So if I have, 100 active members and 500 non-members, then those non-members are all free because it doesn't exceed 5 times. But if I had, 501 non-members, I would get billed for that one non-member over the amount of 5 times the active members. And that rate is 2 cents per person over that 5 times amount. So if I have 502 non-members, for those 2 people over the 5 times my 100 active members, I would get billed a total of 4 cents. So 2 cents for those 2 people over that 500 amount. Takes a little bit of just quick math, but yeah. So essentially, if you have 100 members, then you can have 500 non-members and not get billed. If you have 1,000 members, then you can have 5,000 non-members and not get billed. But anything over that 5 times amount would get billed for at a 2 cents per non-member over that amount, not for each of your existing. Let's see what we've got. Someone asked for a link to the treasures playlist. So we touched on a ton of topics today. And for the most part, it was just kind of a general overview of our different topics. If you want kind of a more deep dive into a specific topic, we probably already have a webinar for it. And that playlist that Samantha mentioned at the top will have our previous webinars that were more in-depth onto individual topics. So if you have detailed questions, about like a specific topic, check out that, we're not going to say you have to watch all 9 hours of that content. Go look through the various videos. Most of them are, somewhere between half an hour to 45 minutes. Some of them might top out at an hour. And you can just kind of pick and choose which videos you need to watch and then skip through those to find the content you're looking for. So that playlist is there not as an intent to, watch this whole thing, but just watch the individual videos that apply to you. Let's see.
Start. I'll knock out some questions. So we've requested that membership fee receipts be available in PDF forms for the treasurers. They can be electronically sent to members when they ask. They often lose them and require resending. So there are a couple of ways that you can sort of get around that. Members do have the ability to, I'll just go ahead and pop into my member profile here. Members do have the ability to visit their own transaction and payment history. So transaction history would include all of their open transactions, anything that maybe didn't have a charge or was canceled. And I also have the ability to visit the payment page right from the screen as a member. If I go back and I view my payment and credit history, I can also view all of the receipts of anything that I have paid on the site. And that includes any payments that you may have applied as an administrator as well. So even if they don't necessarily have access to that, if they lost the email that was sent to them, they would still be able to retrieve their own receipts.
Someone asked when the recording for this will be uploaded. The recording for this should be up by the end of this week. Usually if it takes a while for us to edit, it might be up by the following Monday at the latest, but we usually have it up either 24 or 48 hours after the scheduled recording. There's a lot of calls for a QuickBooks webinar. That's something that we kind of work towards a lot. It's difficult because a lot of the understanding of QuickBooks would require more knowledge about QuickBooks than necessarily knowledge about ClubExpress. And so it's like, where do we draw the line on just doing a demo on how to use QuickBooks? And that would fall more under the, QuickBooks training, area where you would actually go to QuickBooks for that idea. We'll probably try to put together a training video just to discuss how to set up for QuickBooks, but that would probably be a little bit quicker than a full hour-long deep dive into the connection.
I will reiterate just a couple of things about the merchant account. So the using the ClubExpress merchant account is not required if you already have your own merchant account using Stripe as a payment processor, I believe authorized.net as well. Now, if you are using the old merchant account as a ClubExpress customer, meaning you're currently using our merchant account, you do need to complete the steps that were outlined in the email that was sent to you. And I highlighted some of those steps today to verify your information and fill in any missing information to ensure that there isn't an interruption in payment processing on your website. If you are using the current ClubExpress merchant account and you have received that email, you absolutely do need to make those changes to switch to the new account. If you are not interested in applying for the ClubExpress merchant account, never have been, things have not changed for you. If you are looking to apply for a new ClubExpress merchant account and you haven't done so already, you will apply for the new account. So you won't need to complete any additional steps, and you can do all of that through your own website. So you won't need to call support unless you're experiencing an error or you're having a lot of issues, but you should be able to complete that just by visiting Money Options. If you scroll down, under credit card merchant account, you'll see a button to apply for the merchant account. If your application's already been submitted, you'll see just a quick status message letting you know that it's being reviewed or that it's processing.
And someone mentioned that they may have misplaced or deleted that email that sent out. We should be sending a follow-up email with the same information later this week. And I believe I think it's either later today or tomorrow, we'll be sending an email. So if you are, again, only if you are currently using the ClubExpress merchant account processor and have been for, a few weeks to months now, if you currently use the ClubExpress merchant processor, not Stripe, not authorized.net, not necessarily PayPal, if you are using the ClubExpress merchant account processor and you haven't made any updates, you should get another email this week with the detailed information on where you need to go to update your information to make sure that there's no interruption come March 15th. There's been a few people who say they don't have the bank account option under setup. That would most likely be a case where you are set up as a coordinator for your organization, and you may not be a full administrator. If you are a full administrator and you do not see bank accounts, then you may need to contact support, because you should be able to see bank account setup under the money tab in setup. The only reason you shouldn't see that is if you are not a full administrator. Someone asks, we use Stripe now. Is there any benefit to switching to the ClubExpress merchant account processor? There are a few benefits. If you meet the requirements to use the ClubExpress merchant account processor, it does offer similar fees to Stripe, so it's not a big cost or savings necessarily either direction for switching to the ClubExpress merchant account processor, but it does allow you to do kind of some nifty things. If you have multiple bank accounts, you can have ClubExpress divvy that money for you instead of having to send it back and forth. And once we are, settled into the new merchant account processor, after March 15th, we'll be working towards even more kind of benefits for using the ClubExpress processor as opposed to, Stripe or PayPal.
So there were a couple of folks that had mentioned that there were some bugs. So we highly encourage you, if you are experiencing issues, to send those to support so that we are able to log them. Of course, you may not be the only person who's experiencing it, so we want to make sure that we get that taken care of. So, for example, if you're receiving an error in a report and it's not appearing for you, it's not functioning, we definitely want to hear about that. So if you are experiencing what you believe to be a bug, let our support team know. Another question, are all of the, so if you are looking to update your information and switch to the new merchant account, when does that switch happen? It happens as soon as your information is verified. The process does not take long. There isn't one set day that everyone will switch over. So these are sort of happening, as you all go in and edit your information. You, again, won't see anything different on your side. The only differences would be, again, how we are processing credit card transaction fees, meaning we're depositing the net amount into your bank account as opposed to the full amount, then taking out the fees. And we are also we're making a couple of other small changes that we highlighted at the top of the hour here. So as far as seeing anything majorly different, you won't. We're just asking that you just pop in and update those few pieces of information when you have a moment, so that you are all set to go come March 15th.
Someone also asked what the fees are for using the ClubExpress merchant account processor. Our fees remain pretty, I don't think there's no like flat fee, like $40 per year or anything like that. It's just fees per transaction. Mm-hmm. And, those are always, like with all payment processors, occasionally subject to change. But we try to stay pretty competitive, and you can always see the most updated pricing on clubexpress.com if you go to pricing. Someone also asked, how do you use the PayPal account? You set it up very similar to the ClubExpress account. You would just go to your money options page, and there is a connect PayPal account. And then once it is connected to your business PayPal account, you can actually go in and whenever you're submitting a payment, it'll just add an extra payment option to say pay with PayPal, which will do that same option where you just like click on the pay with PayPal button. It opens up a little window to PayPal. You either log in or pay with a credit card. But, if you've ever checked out with PayPal on any other website, it's much the same. It just gives the option. It doesn't mean you have to use PayPal. It just means there's an option to do so.
Another question, is it possible to add Venmo? It is currently not possible. However, that is something that is on our developer list, adding Venmo as a payment option. So keep on the lookout for that. And another question that Devin, you might know the answer to this. I don't think that I do. If you have to change any information associated with your merchant account, that is a call to support once the account is activated, is it not?
I believe so.
Okay. So yes, if you do need to change any information that you would have put into your merchant account, that's a quick call to support. If you are updating your merchant account and switching, and you hadn't yet maybe switched over your treasurer's information, now would be an excellent time to do that. It would also just be a great time in general to double check to make sure that you have the proper folks listed. You have your correct treasurer listed on your account. And we've also included a video in our ClubExpress for Treasurers playlist called Understanding Security Roles. So if you're confused as to why you might be a coordinator and you may not have admin rights, we kind of go through what the differences are in all of those rights and how you can make sure that everyone has the right access to everything on your site. So a lot of good information in that playlist, a lot of really good cleanup that you can do, again, to set yourself up for success for the year.
A few like wrap up questions. I know we're going quite over today, but a few wrap up questions. Is it possible to add Venmo? At this time, we don't have any like roadmap plans for integrating with Venmo. Not to say it won't happen, just not at the moment. With PayPal fees, are those charged to the client or the merchant? The PayPal fees will be charged to your PayPal account. So it's not going to get charged to the person paying for the transaction. It'll be charged to the account holder of that PayPal account. And then for refund accounts, so right now refunds are going to roll back to the way they were only a few months, I think maybe about a year ago, where if you need to refund, you have to do it kind of outside the system. We will be very quickly working towards an updated refund process. So keep an eye out for that. That's kind of on our top of priority for our merchant account, is to get back to a quick process, refund process. So we should have that back up and running fairly shortly.
And anyone who has a credit sitting on their member account, that won't be affected. So the credits that your members might have sitting on their accounts are completely separate from whether or not you choose to refund them. So if you have a bunch of members who have $5, $500 sitting on their member account, those funds will stay there. They won't be affected. You just may not be able to send that money back to them right away. If they chose that they wanted a standalone refund, or you may just need to process a check to send them.
Yeah. And there's been a few questions about Stripe, like what are the Stripe fees? How do I update my Stripe account? All of that, if you're using your Stripe account with ClubExpress and not using the ClubExpress merchant processor, all of that would be done through your Stripe account, not through ClubExpress. So if you need to update, your account with them, you would do that through them. If you want to check on your fees, you would check that with Stripe. All of that is controlled by Stripe, not by ClubExpress. And then are all of the tutorials regarding the treasurer functions on the YouTube channel? Yes, all of our tutorials, all of our webinars, all of our video content, outside of the content from our things like our boot camps, all of our video content is going to exist on our YouTube channel. So if it's there, or if it's a video like webinar or tutorial, then it is currently on our YouTube channel.
Okay. And how do you know if your merchant account is approved? You won't need to call support. You can check back on your money options page, and the message under your merchant account heading will update to let you know the status of your merchant account. So you won't have to call into support. You can check it on your own. And as soon as that merchant account is active and approved on your site, you'll see a message saying that your merchant account is active.
There's a few questions on how to contact Stripe. You should have, if you went through the Stripe process, then you should have some sort of email thread, or you should have been provided with contact directions for Stripe. So that would be something you can just, reach out to the Stripe payment processor website and find their contact information there. But we don't have like a direct line to Stripe. There is someone asking, is there a report for credit transaction history? Whether you mean credit card or like a member's credit, both, the answer to both is yes. In your control panel on the money page, there is a reports section, and there's an option for like user payments. And when you are running the payments report, you have the option to filter that report by payment type. So you could say, show me all of the payments that have been done by credit card, show me all the payments that have been done by PayPal, show me all the credits that were done by, credit balances from our members. You can filter that report to show any individual payment type, or you can say, show me this report for all payment types, and you could pull it into an Excel file and sort and filter and total from there. All right. I think we are well and truly over time. Sam, do you want to put a button on it?
Yes, I do. I would like to thank everyone. This was a very, very exciting and robust webinar. We had a great group. So we will have a copy of this, the recording of this video will be posted to our YouTube channel within a few days. So we'll also include this in the Treasurer's playlist. So you'll be able to access it right at the top of our most recent uploads. And then if you'll navigate to that playlist and bookmark it for yourself, we'll include this video in that playlist as well. So we highly encourage you to take a look at those videos, and thank you so much for your time. And without further ado, we'll see you in the next webinar. Goodbye, everyone.